Literacy in the classroom for 4th and 5th graders. To learn what literacy in the classroom looks like, we interviewed two teachers, Robin Wellman, a 4th grade teacher in Kirkwood, Missouri, and Bryson Travis, a 5th grade teacher in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. Although from different places and teaching different grades, Mr. Travis and Mrs. Wellman agree on one important aspect of literacy. It has to be fun and interesting for the students. Mr. Travis says that he gives the students voice and choice in what they read. He also integrates projects and experiments into reading, and he tries to get an authentic audience into writing so the students can see who they're writing to. Mrs. Wellman loves to read and write herself, and she thinks her students can tell that excitement when she teaches. She has tons of books in her classroom, and she's always sharing favorite stories and authors with her students. She even models her own writing about her own children and pets, which the kids think is funny. They read and write in a bunch of genres which excite the kids that love to write fiction stories or read nonfiction. They even write joke books or poetry.
The literacy period is divided into 3 sections: whole group, small group, and individual conferring, and IDR, independent daily reading. The whole group section focuses on standard skill and soft skill, grit, perseverance, and teamwork. That generally goes on a 4-lesson cycle, with some lessons taking more than a day based on formative assessment results of the class. The small group is divided by skill, need, and the makeup of the group fluctuates from day to day. It's not ability leveled, but a result of individual skills determined by various common formative assessments. The individual conferring and IDR time is a time to utilize the skill and build intrinsic reading motivation and to provide one-on-one time as needed.
The 4th grade teacher we interviewed regarding struggling students said she uses Faunus and Pinnell, which are benchmark books and running records followed by questions on their comprehension. For her stronger students, she did online Lexile assessments and writing dictation, which is scored by both correct spelling and phonic spelling. They do whole school benchmarking 3 times a year to identify students who are not meeting benchmarks in reading and math. These are done by their literacy and math interventionists and special education teachers. The information, along with classroom teacher input, determines who is eligible for intervention. Teacher observations on a daily basis are also an important part of identifying student needs. When identifying struggling readers and writers, the 5th grade teacher we interviewed said he uses CFA, which is Common Formative Assessments, and AIMSweb, which is Fluency and Writing Tests, and also uses scores from various classroom assessments to help generate data, but the primary way is watching the kids do the skill. As a teacher, anecdotal evidence and observation are the primary tools to identify struggling kids and confirm or deny what the assessment data tells us.
Hi, Ms. Van Welden. I was wondering if you could help me learn a little bit more about literacy in the classroom for when I have my own classroom. How do you teach the different ability levels in the classroom?
Well, Leah, it can be hard to meet the variety of needs in a class, but I think it is easier to do with reading and writing than math. For the whole group reading lesson, I read the book aloud that we are using to try out comprehension strategies. Then they try those skills independently with books on their own level. We work really hard to make sure kids are reading books at their own level, and they area all in guided reading groups or book clubs that meet 2 to 3 times a week with books on their own level. For writing, the lessons that we do can be applied to their own writing skill.
Cool, thanks. How much review do you have to do after the kids go back for the summer?
Well, kids do usually regress over the summer. They often either retain the skills they reached by the end of the year or regress a little bit. It can sometimes take the whole first quarter to regain those skills.
What are some important parts of your philosophy of literacy?
Well, I want kids to love to read and write. I want them to see it as meaningful, so we find real-world reasons to use our skills. For example, we wrote letters to our principal asking for changes in our school. We also read to find out specific information that we are interested in.
Thanks so much for providing me with this information for teaching literacy to my students.
No problem, Leah.
So, Ms. Lynch, how do you teach literacy in different content areas?
Well, I think that in different content areas, you should always include writing prompts, journaling, class blogs, current events, reading subject matter, and experiments should all be cross-curricular. So you can incorporate all of those different things into different subject matters.
How do you teach the different ability levels in the same classroom?
Well, you always have to make sure to differentiate your content. So when you're in your large group, you can start with that, and whenever they go to small groups, you can depend on what they need to work on with their skills, you can incorporate those, and then you can move on to individual and help them even further if they still need more help.
What sort of literary elements do you teach throughout the year?
The main one that I like to focus on is comprehension skills. So that includes supporting main ideas, supporting details, making connections, inferring from a text, inferring across text, and cause and effects.
Thanks so much, Ms. Lynch, for talking with me. I feel like I really understand now how to incorporate literacy in the classroom better.
Good.
Thanks so much to those experienced teachers I interviewed for helping me know about literacy in the classroom. Let's see how well I can combine literacy with other aspects of classroom learning. So those are the holidays around the world, and that's almost the end of our social studies lesson for today. For the last part, do a 5-minute write about the holidays you learned about today that are celebrated around the world. By instructing the students to do a 5-minute writing exercise after a social studies lesson, this new teacher was able to enhance social studies knowledge while working on a writing skill. This is a great way to incorporate writing into other content areas. K. K is for killer whale. Killer whales are also called orcas. Orcas are the largest of all dolphins. They are easy to recognize because they are white and black. The male has the tallest dorsal fin of any sea creature. Notice how the author made killer whale in bold. This is an important text feature we've been learning about. Now, look through your own science books and find out more about mammals and see if you can find any text features while you do this. In this science lesson, the teacher mentioned text features, something the students had been learning about in a reading lesson. By bringing it up in the science lesson, the teacher was able to accurately integrate reading and science. Using reading skills outside of reading class shows students that they practically apply in other places. We just finished reading I Am George Washington. This book was a historical fiction book because it told us about the real George Washington, but in a story format. Remember that this book had a table of contents, different chapters, and lots of illustrations. It also had a timeline. Your job now is to create your own historical fiction book about someone we've learned about this year. Your book has to have a table of contents, chapters, and a timeline. In this lesson, the teacher read the students a historical fiction book. Then she pointed out some of the text features in the book, a reading skill. Then she instructed the students to write their own historical fiction book using some of the text features mentioned. The book had to be about someone they'd learned about in social studies that year. This is a great way to integrate reading, writing, and social studies because the students get to work on reading and writing skills while gaining a deeper understanding for the social studies content. Now that we finished reading The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss, we're going to do a just statement. So we wrote down all the main parts of this story: the who, what, when, where, and why. Keep these in mind and write down a just statement, which is 20 words that describe the main idea of the book. In this lesson, the teacher accurately incorporates reading and writing skills into the same lesson, and this helps the students dive into a deeper understanding of the book's main idea.
Leah is fantastic at modeling for her students. She uses many strategies such as think alouds, just statements, quick writes, and text features to help her students learn the elements of literacy. Leah has great potential to be an amazing classroom or reading teacher. She is conscious of the need for whole classroom instruction, small groups, and individual help. She is always calm and patient, and I believe that she will do awesome in her class.
I think Leah did a fantastic job as a new teacher in the field. She incorporated all subjects using the literacy skills we showed her in the interview. She used many different strategies to show different reading and writing skills. I feel that Leah has a very bright future ahead of her as an elementary teacher. She has a very positive attitude that will rub off on her students that she teaches. In conclusion, the most important parts of literacy in 4th and 5th grade classrooms is making literacy fun for students, incorporating literacy throughout the curriculum, and allowing students to have voice and choice. Thanks to the teachers we interviewed and the teachers who recorded their literacy classrooms for helping us learn what a literacy classroom looks like.